Of course, prompting an AI isn't just like writing, but AI isn't really just like anything else either. I've been thinking a lot lately about the language we use to talk about AI, or really the language we use to try to understand AI and what it does. And that's mostly because a lot of the discourse about it, whether you love it or hate it, just feels a little detached from reality in places. And I can't help but think that that's at least partially down to the language that we use to describe it. And that's not just an AI problem, it's a well-documented fact of language. As friend of the show Kenneth Burke puts it, even if any given terminology is a reflection of reality, by its very nature as terminology, it must be a selection of reality. And to this extent, it must function also as a deflection of reality. So let's just take a nice simple word like fruit. That's a word that's meant to reflect a certain aspect of reality. It wouldn't be a very useful word if it didn't reflect our reality in some way. Like berblithelgrump isn't a very useful word, but fruit is. And why is fruit a useful reflection of reality? Well, because it's a selection of reality. It separates out certain things in the world that fit in the category of fruits. Apples, yes. Cherries, yes. Airplanes, no. Lemons, yes. Bananas, yes. Corn, no. So the meaning of a word is usually less of an arrow pointing at a thing and more of a fence, excluding things that don't fit and selecting out the ones that do. But check this out, that selection of reality can easily turn into a deflection or distortion of reality. When you draw the fence around all the things that are fruit, does tomato get to go inside or outside? And what about cucumber? Cucumbers, pumpkins, watermelons, and zucchini are all part of the same biological family, and botanically speaking, they're all fruits. But most of us probably have a different definition of that word, one that would exclude many of these fruits. I mean, toss some chopped cucumber, zucchini, and spaghetti squash in a bowl, and you'd get some pretty weird looks if you called it fruit salad. So common usage of the word fruit deflects or distorts the taxonomic reality that cucumbers are fruits, and in turn, the scientific usage of the word fruit distorts the everyday culinary experience that we just don't eat zucchini the way we eat pomegranates or cantaloupe. So unavoidably, Burke says, our efforts to reflect reality by selecting things out of reality will ultimately deflect reality. The language we use to understand our world also distorts our understanding of it. And for the most part, the stakes of that distortion are low. For most people, most of the time, it just doesn't really matter whether you consider cucumbers to be fruit or you call someone's truck a car. In the contexts where those distinctions do matter more, well, then you end up with specialized jargon that selects more precisely in order to minimize the deflection. But with figurative language, we get an interesting heightening of the reflection, selection, and deflection of reality. We use metaphors to understand things that are hard to understand. Love is a complex and confounding thing, so when the poet says, "My love is a red, red rose," we get a metaphor. Love is not literally a rose, but it's like a rose in some useful ways. Maybe the love we're talking about is beautiful in the way that a rose is beautiful. Maybe it's short-lived. Maybe it has its challenges and difficulties, or its thorns, if you will. By comparing love to a rose, we're selecting certain aspects of love and certain aspects of roses, and using those similarities to make sense of something that's hard to understand. But you can only push a metaphor so far. As much as the rose reflects certain realities of love, it also deflects a whole bunch of them too. You don't plant love in the dirt. Love doesn't only bloom in certain times of the year, and you don't improve your love life with a fertilizer with an equal blend of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Obviously, your love that is like a red, red rose is also fundamentally nothing like a red, red rose. As Lakoff and Johnson put it in their famous work on metaphors, the very systematicity that allows us to comprehend one aspect of a concept in terms of another will necessarily hide other aspects of the concept. So when we think of love as a rose, we miss out on all the aspects of love that are not like a rose. Metaphors can hide as much as they reveal. And our AI talk is rife with metaphors and deflections of reality. Even the name, artificial intelligence. We're using our experience of human intelligence as a metaphor in order to try to make sense of whatever computers are doing. Most of us don't really know what's going on, but we do have at least a passing familiarity with intelligence. So marketing the unfamiliar systems in terms of familiar experiences help us to bridge the gap. But of course, it's the metaphors that show up when we apply AI to things like writing that I'm especially interested in. And it's those metaphors that I think are especially troubled. Like when someone asserts that AI learns just like a human, which obviously it doesn't. All right, class, welcome to the first day of art school. Here's your first assignment. Well, I don't understand. What is this? Well, it's a field of random visual noise, of course. All you need to do is reverse engineer an image of a cat by refining that noise into a pretty picture with uncanny lighting. Or when someone says that AI regurgitating remixes of its training data is just like a human artist taking inspiration from another artist's work. Okay, I know that I want to be a great writer, just like all of my favorite authors. So, of course, what I'm going to do is memorize every word they ever wrote, create statistical models of how often words occur together, and then reproduce sentences using only those words, reassembled in a form that my favorite author would likely have put them in. While it may be true that generative AI is doing things that resemble human activity, the AI is human metaphor is obviously not true. While it may do something like learning, actual human learning is a metaphor for what AI does, and it's a strained metaphor at that because humans and computers don't do the same things in the same way. I mean, just find me the scholarship that teaching humans to write is best done by memorizing texts and applying probabilities to sentence composition. I will wait. But anyway, all these AI is just like humans metaphors have led some people to think that it's unproblematic to collapse writing and writing with AI into the same category. There isn't a meaningful distinction, they seem to say, between sitting at a keyboard and writing your novel, or sitting at a keyboard and prompting AI to write your novel. And maybe nobody cares, but with all due respect, prompting isn't writing. I mean, it's telling, frankly, that we use different verbs for both activities. And it is easy to be dismissive and snarky when AI is only capable right now of producing the most shambolic of slop. But what if the long prophesied day actually comes, when AI really is good at rhetorical and literary tasks, a brave new age ruled by prompt engineers? What then? Well, I don't actually think we need to imagine that much. Step into any writing classroom of the last couple thousand years, and you'll find yourself in the presence of a prompt engineer. Now, we usually call them teachers in human spaces, but I, for one, have spent the last 10 years of my life engineering prompts designed to elicit specific documents from groups of students. Right? I mean, look at the similarities between the writing teacher and the prompt engineer. We both have a target document in mind. We both create a set of instructions for producing that document. We both deal with uncooperative collaborators with an underdeveloped understanding of the task who occasionally misrepresent, misappropriate, or even wholly fabricate knowledge. And we both often get results from our prompts and then either give the document's producer corrective feedback or rewrite our prompts to fine-tune the output. And that all sounds pretty reasonable. But let's just say that I write a great prompt and get a bunch of students to write sonnets, and maybe in a class of 25, one of them writes a really good sonnet. So how do we feel about me taking that sonnet, putting my name on it, and sending it to the publisher? Well, wait, what do you mean? I wrote the instructions for the sonnet. Why should it be controversial for me to say that I wrote the sonnet? I mean, I basically did. It wouldn't exist if it weren't for my instructions. That student was merely just a tool I used to enhance my creativity and save time. I mean, I've got more important things to do, so why should I spend my time choosing each word and counting syllables and matching rhyming words? I provide the instructions, the student does the busy work, and I end up with a brilliant sonnet that aligns with my creative vision. Isn't that great? In fact, this really democratizes poetry if you think about it. Now you don't need to spend years learning how to write poems, you just need access to a room full of undergrads. Really, we're putting creativity in the hands of the people. Now remember, every metaphor distorts reality. Obviously, a writing teacher can take credit for developing a good prompt, but it's silly to think they could or should take credit for their students' work in any meaningful way. And yeah, the implications of exploiting actual human beings are much more serious than exploiting a large language model for the same purpose. Well, unless we really do believe that LLMs are intelligent. The fact is, prompting chatbots to write may be new, but prompting goes back at least as far as the progymnasmata. And sure, this comparison breaks down, as all comparisons do, if we zoom out some more. Teachers are trying to teach a skill. Prompters are trying to get a document. Teachers are trained with years of writing, creating prompts, evaluating student work, and more. Prompters, at least in a lot of what you might hear, seem to treat AI as a way to circumvent the need for training and knowledge. And I don't know, we could keep going. The point is that I'm doing something really different when I'm writing and when I'm creating an assignment prompt. When it comes to AI, though, it often sounds like we've collapsed that distinction, and that feels a whole lot more like a deflection of reality than it does a faithful reflection of it. Good prompting is hard, and I'd even say it's respectable work, but a prompt never ever produces the exact document I would create if I were to do the task myself. Writing instructions specific enough to get a student to write exactly what I would write would be so much harder and more time-consuming than just writing the thing myself. Every time I've attempted to do anything with AI, I found it to be so squirrely and unreliable, I just don't understand how it's an improvement over doing something myself. So I find this argument that AI somehow makes creation more accessible really uninteresting. Writing may just be the most accessible creative outlet there is. You don't need any equipment beyond a working knowledge of an intelligible language to get started. The barrier of entry really could not be lower. So, as always, my deepest question is, why not just write it yourself? Every day I work with people who have a low confidence in their ability to write. I can appreciate that the blank page can be intimidating. Frankly, I think I spend maybe 60% of my time on a project refusing to start because I worry that it won't be as good as I want it to be. So I can understand why someone might see an AI tool as a way to get around the hard work of creating in order to skip to a final project. But after a few weeks, those writers who come into class feeling incapable gain confidence as they put in the work and commit to learning. So if it's just a lack of confidence that's holding you back from writing the thing yourself, let me be the one to tell you that you are capable of more than you think. You absolutely can write that book that's simmering inside you. Believe me when I say that you can do it, and you can already do it so much better than any computerized pseudo-intelligence. And I've heard the idea that working with AI is, and now note the metaphorical language, just like working with a ghostwriter. Now, obviously, your average LLM is nothing like an actual ghostwriter. But it is worth pointing out that working with a ghostwriter isn't just like writing either. If you want a book to exist in the world that has your name on it, well, that's different from wanting to create a book that happens also to have your name on it. That is, I don't really think that cost is the only reason that ghostwriters haven't completely replaced writers. So why oh why would a cheaper, less reliable ghostwriter stop people from getting something out of writing things for themselves? Now, if you are a person who has confidence in yourself and your writing, but you're losing confidence in the people out there who seem more interested in purchasing a monthly prompt allowance than in paying an actual writer, well, this isn't really anything new either. For example, there will always be corporations looking to get documents for cheap. And I don't think you want to be writing for them anyway. The internet has long been choking on human-written SEO-optimized slop, so issues of scale aside, it doesn't really make a difference to your writing if all that nonsense out there is written by artificial nonsense generators now. I mean, I just can't imagine, no matter how good automated text generation eventually gets, that people will just stop writing. If you're just writing or hiring a writer because you think it's the shortest path between you and a payday, well, then maybe AI is something to watch out for. But if you write because you like doing it, who in the world cares what AI and its users are up to? We can produce cupcakes at an industrial scale already, but there are still people who like making cupcakes themselves. What's more, there are still people who appreciate and are willing to pay good money for cupcakes that don't come out of a factory. I know, again with the metaphors. The other one that I hear a lot is that AI is to art what photography is to painting. Be that as it may, whatever similarities photography has to painting, there are still people who paint. So do you see what I mean? Because prompting isn't writing, prompting can't replace writing. Even if the day came that AI could be prompted into writing better stuff than I could, I would probably still write because I like the game of grammar and the pleasures of rhythm way too much to give that part of the process up to someone or something else. And while there isn't any scholarship saying that writing classes should be focused on memorizing word frequency charts, there are decades upon decades of research emphasizing the idea that the process is much more important than the product, that how you make something matters even more than what you make. So if you find pleasure in the process at all, advances in AI are largely irrelevant to your journey as a writer. Who cares if multinational corporations are employing prompt engineers to churn out unintelligible ad copy? They were never going to be interested in your memoir anyway. And the people who are interested in memoirs aren't going to care about the hallucinatory fabrications of digital non-brains. Those readers are still going to want human stories, not simulated reflections on events that never happened. Because, dear viewer, the people who appreciate writing as a craft as distinct from just the mere documents know that a statistical model will never be able to compete. As the philosopher Jan Zwicky wrote a decade ago, we will never get a calculus to do all that a natural language does, because not all the moves in a natural language are analytic. Sometimes thoughts are connected by tonal associations, images, family resemblances. Not every linguistic impulse is disintegrative. Some clear and expressible thoughts aim at a tapestry rather than a hierarchically ordered complex of elements. Many of our finest expressions slip through the lattice of even the most powerful algebra. So no matter how other people are using the robots, keep writing, especially if it's something you like doing, because there are still plenty of us out here who can't wait to see the unique and irreplaceable things that you'll create.